Welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about planting food in an urban landscape, perhaps just a smaller area at your house, or if you're looking to do some landscaping and would like to add some sort of food. Maybe you'd like to have an apple tree or peach tree or berry bushes. Right behind me in the camera is bee balm or anise hyssop. I have some lovage behind me, arugula, and then right behind that, we'll show you a little bit later, is a pear tree. Now keep in mind, I'm going to be touring my property a little bit and showing you some of the diversity, but you don't have to do it in the same style as me. I've used a lot of clover and a lot of other native plants and thrown a lot of seeds because I want mine to be a little bit more wild and I want to have as much diversity as I possibly can. And this is only its second year, so some of these things we're still trying to work out, see how they grow. Are we going to have to trellis up some of these black raspberries, or we're gonna have to do some other things with the blackberries themselves, and also we need to start pruning these pear trees. So we'll get to it, and I'll show you just if using sheet mulch, like using sheet mulching to set aside a planting area around your house, can definitely be done because this is just a small lot, as you'll see, and you can use it to just blank out an area in your land next to your house and plant what you want. If you want an apple tree, some asparagus, and a couple blueberry bushes, you can do that. I just wanted to show you that landscaping doesn't have to be just about rocks and a couple of plants on display. You can actually have some food produced in your own yard. So like I said, I'm sure this initial shot kind of shocked some of you people. I have wild lettuces going up here. I've let my arugula go to seed, and a couple other things, so it's 7-8 foot tall. Those are all supposed to be trimmed, but this is the second year for them, and I wanted them to go through a whole life cycle, and then next year we'll be eating those leaves, adding them to soups and making tea out of the bee balm and things like that. And what I really wanted to focus on was this. So if you think about this, I'm standing actually in the backyard of a single plot of land in a city. There's the garage, there's my nephew. So the house actually used to be basically where all the wood chips are. And see the house there, just imagine another house being right there, and it took up all that area. So if you live in a single lot, you can imagine that this would be your side yard. Perspective here, this would have been the front of the house, obviously, because these houses are all in line, so that would have been the porch area right around here. You could easily have a porch there and then have this planting area all the way around, and you can mix it with whatever food you want. You can trim the elderberries down, you can add different bushes, but you could simply have just a barrier or a little planting area that goes around. You don't have to use wooden boxes, you don't have to buy 2x4s. Get some cardboard boxes and get some wood, some wood chips from a local place for $10 a pickup truck load, and you can plant all the food you want. You can even set aside areas for annual vegetables, and you could sheet mulch or plant out an area, and you can make it tidier than I have, but just to show you some of the diversity of black raspberries here that, like I mentioned, might have to be trellised because they're dipping out into the yard. And I have purple coneflower. There's comfrey, that's a deep tap-rooted nutrient accumulator. These are black currants, and this bush will get much larger. And this is all to give you an idea that this plant and this plant could produce food at different times of the year, enough for a couple of people. Just these two plants could be a major supplement to your diet and add, fresh, nutritious food. Because we're trying to give you an overall sense of what's possible when you plant in a similar method, that instead of just planting the bergamot because it's pretty, but planting it because of all the different species that come in, all the different insects, but realize that a lot of those things will pollinate your honeyberries and your pear trees and all that, and it all works in conjunction in a natural, beautiful way. I think this is the proper way to create a food source for humans, really. I don't understand the industrial agriculture system. That system's if I have to mine chemicals from a different country in order to make my pink bergamot, bloom and grow, then I have a problem. When all I really simply need to do is cover the soil and plant densely in varieties that complement each other. On top of that, you get pears at the end of the year. We have purple cone flowers here for natives, and I can't even begin to tell you all the different plants are in here. There's milkweed for the butterflies. There's this, and I have no idea what this is, but apparently I planted it. I guess I could Google Lens it, but it's grown quite considerably and it looks really cool, so I'm leaving it there. I mow around it. But then continuing on, there's gooseberries in here. There's aronia berries right here, which are black chokeberries, and more comfrey. That's another aronia berry right here. And as we move along, there's another currant. This is kind of a dead spot. We had a gooseberry that didn't quite make it, so we might end up putting in an elderberry in this spot. Huge elderberries. These are Bob Gordon variety. And you can see that they're already putting fruit on. If it'll focus. So this thing's going to be loaded with elderberries here in about a month, as well as the asparagus and more elderberry. And right next to it, which you guess wouldn't be able to do it if the house was still here, but here's another pear tree. So we have one pear tree, two pear trees, we have that third pear tree that I showed you earlier, and then all the way down at the other end of this is an Asian hybrid dual pear, if you will. It has two different types of Asian pears on it, grafted, and it's kind of the same thing. Here's some white pine berries, which are really cool. They haven't been producing yet this year, but like I said, this is only their second year, and it spreads just like a June-bearing strawberry, so it leaps and regrows itself. So this whole area, on top of all the red clover and white clover that I put in here as a nitrogen source and a mulch, I can actually chop all that down and mulch the soil. But all this is growing up in between all that. Every once in a while we get a thistle. We just chop it down, add it to our soil. And we continue on. We have honeyberries. There's actually 3 honeyberry bushes here, next to, I think, bergamot of some kind. These bushes themselves will also try and give you a visual. This whole area will be filled with honeyberry, just from these 3 bushes, right here, right here, right here. But they're gonna get quite large. So this whole area, if you were sitting here, probably next year, you won't be able to see the truck. And then further along, we have asparagus, more regular strawberries. Now, to finish this up, I'll bring you along this little pathway. Because of all the roots of this tree, we've actually planted it out with sunchokes, which are Jerusalem artichokes. So there's actually food all underneath the ground right there we can pull up and eat. Some comfrey and just a random bit of clover. There's other flower seeds that we've just strewn around in there to see what we'll take. But normally, this was an area that wouldn't go grass because of the tree. So now we're at least using it to have some sort of food growing, some sort of energy is going into the ground supporting the tree. And I think it's actually really pretty as the different flowers bloom. And it'd be impossible for me to do a video over here without mentioning the comfrey wall. I don't know if everybody's familiar with comfrey, but if you see, this plant is incredibly dense. This is from one root fragment, and the size of the leaf, I'll give you some way to measure it, but all of this is blocking all the grasses from coming in rhizomally. Here is a brief aside to talk about this comfrey some more, where this has been left wild for the year, and it's still a fan of pollinators. So it can look like this, but very easily it can be trimmed to look like this with just a little rice knife. You can see I cut some of the outer stems, and this will cause re-leafing or spontaneous regrowth. And a good thing about that is, you see all these flowers? Once it regrows, it'll actually push out more flowers, and it'll be a nectar source for more pollinators. And it looks pretty neat. You can make it neat and tidy. You still have your walkways clear, and you can also use it once you've trimmed everything down. You can use it, and this is a little bit more wild. This is how I try to recirculate energy in my system. You can see here we've put all sorts of the comfrey leaves right on top of this wood chips, and all that's going to break down, feed the soil life, and be able to put energy into the pear tree, which has been growing crazy this year. And this will all kind of brown out, so that's why I say if you don't want this kind of wild looking way, you can just put this in a compost bin, and then when it's broken down, you can just add it directly to the soil, to the soil surface. But the way it is right now, it's directly providing nutrients to my serviceberry, whatever this plant is, a serviceberry, to my currant, and to my pear tree. And it's all about adding valuable nutrients to the topsoil so that we can have food in our backyards instead of at the supermarket. Anybody who's interested in having their own pears on their property, see if I can do this. If anybody who's here is interested in having food on their own property, just realize that you can have food growing in your own home instead of having to go to the supermarket for anything or everything. If you have a big enough plot of land, you can basically support your entire family. But it's just amazing that with a little bit of space, you can grow so much in such a dense way, and provide nutritious food for your families. So I appreciate you taking a little walk around with me, and I urge you to look up other permaculture gardens and sustainable agriculture and all these different things. Because if each of us get a little bit of food growing in our yards, or at a nearby park, or nearby wherever, land we're at the library where they'll let you rent for $1 a month a raised bed to grow some food. If we can all do that, we'll be less dependent on an international oil consumption, massive trucks driving down the road, just going across the seas, just to bring us, kumquats. Like, I don't really understand all that, but appreciate you watching, and I hope you get to planting some food. All right, bye-bye.